Hello again, welcome back to Drummer Daily. I'm Daniel, thanks for being here. I am excited for a couple of reasons. Number one, because this episode is coming out on what is known as Pi Day, 3/14, and my wife and I have discussed the possibility of possibly making a pie. I don't know what kind of pie, but dessert is never a bad thing to me. And so I don't know if there's going to be a pie or not, but if there is, I'm excited about it. And I'm going to definitely enjoy whatever it is. Maybe chocolate. I actually do like pumpkin pie. Normally it's a Thanksgiving time kind of thing, but hey, why can't we have pumpkin pie in the spring? Nothing wrong with that. So today, I'm going to do something a little different. This is going to be a really short episode, but I wanted to tell you about something that I'm super excited about, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I've heard from some of you listening that and I've mentioned this before, it can be really tough with this podcast. If you're looking for playing tips or technique or different things for actually drumming, this podcast for some people is like can be frustrating. Like, oh, why don't you just play the drums? And I've mentioned this recently before, but it's actually really hard to do a daily podcast in general, first and foremost. It's hard to do this every day, but I'm dedicated to it and I love doing it. It's just really difficult. And so I have simplified my production of this podcast to the point where it makes it easy for me to create this podcast every day. If it was any harder, I would not have the discipline. Again, I think I've mentioned before, I'm not necessarily the most disciplined person in a lot of ways. I wouldn't have the discipline to sit down and do a big production every day. Just not enough time in the day. There's a lot of other things that go into it. So it just would be a big hurdle for me to jump over if the production of this podcast got to be any bigger. And so recording drums is really hard to do. It takes time. And the other part of it is that it's just mixing it all down into something that's usable. And even then, I feel like teaching on the drums, it should be a very visual thing. It's good to see what we're doing, not just hear it. So that's kind of been the reasons why I don't do something like that here on the podcast. I do YouTube videos right now, but those kind of come out, once every couple of weeks, and they're very specific, and there's not necessarily as much real-time interaction. So I came up with something that I think is going to tick all those boxes in a way that you're really going to like, and I'm really excited about doing it. And I don't have a name for it yet, but I'm thinking I'm going to call it something like, I was going to call it Friday Live, but I realized that for the next few weeks that I'm going to do this, it may not happen on Friday. It may happen different days of the week. But what it's going to be is this. I'm going to go live on Facebook once a week. And so just over my Facebook page. So if you haven't liked that yet or followed it, please do, because like I said, this is not there's not some kind of business motive behind this. I just want to make sure you get a chance to be a part of this if you'd like to. But go over to facebook.com/TheDanielHadaway and hit that like button, because that's where I'm going to start doing this. And what this that I'm talking about is I am going to do basically a live drum clinic every week. Somewhere, it's always going to be somewhere around lunchtime in the middle of the day. But the great thing is that all these will be recorded on Facebook, and then the replays will be posted. So even if you can't tune in live, you can watch later. But I have found a way to kind of get my drums all mixed and sounding good, and then broadcast that over Facebook so that you can hear the drums, you can see me. Have a couple of different cameras. We'll have the lighting. We'll have the whole thing done. It should look pretty professional, and should sound great. But I thought, how cool would it be if we could all? So not only could I just put, it's not a YouTube video. It's going to be a little bit longer, but I'll sit down and play some things on the drums, and I can definitely show you my setup and walk you through things as well, like we did. I did a live video last week, but I just had my phone, and we were just talking about different setups, different things like that. But this week, what I love about the idea about this is that we're going to be able to, you're going to be able to ask questions live. Say, hey, what about when you play this, or well, how should I do this, or can you play that, or can you do this thing or that thing? And right there live in real time, I'll be able to do it, and it'll sound great, and I'll be able to reply to you and talk to you and show you things on the drum kit. It'll kind of be like a group drum lesson or drum clinic live every week. And so I hope you'll join me on that. That's all this episode's about today. But I really, I just want to remind you that I know that I have, right now I have Boom Click Bootcamp that I promote. And that is something that, is a paid for thing. But that's really all I have business-wise as far as making money goes off all this drum stuff that I do. That's all I've got that's going on with that. And I know you hear me talk about it every once in a while, and I appreciate you putting up with it if you're not interested or you've already jumped in on that. But my number one goal is to equip and inspire you as a drummer. That really is a passion of mine. And so I'm putting everything I have into just providing as many resources as I can to you as a drummer, and making as much of it free as I possibly can. And so that's why I do these daily podcasts. That's why I do YouTube videos. That's why I do Instagram videos. That's why I do these live broadcasts on Facebook. I'm just trying to find new and creative ways to equip and inspire you as a drummer. And so I hope you'll join me on this. I hope that you'll share this with other people. Oh, and speaking of promotion, I am promoting one more thing, but I think you're going to like this. I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, but I am giving away an A&F pancake snare, a 12-inch pancake snare. And the good news is, if you're listening to this podcast, you're already most likely halfway there to entering, because all you need to do to enter is two things to enter to win this snare drum. The first is subscribe to this podcast, which, like I said, I hope you've already done. If you haven't, please subscribe on iTunes. Or if you're on Android, you can subscribe on some other app. I didn't mention that in the post about this, but I'm not limiting this to Apple users only. But I'd love for you to subscribe in some way. Actually subscribe, not just listen to these whenever you feel like it. Or listen to these when you feel like it, but just subscribe, because that helps me out a lot. But the other thing is, there is a post that I put up on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to find this, is on Instagram. But there is a post that just says, win this drum. It's got a picture of the pancake snare. And I would love for you to repost that. You don't have to repost the whole thing, but the important thing is that you repost the part that has a link to this podcast. So it's the link in there it's just a bit.ly link. So it's bit.ly/drum podcast. And then also, so that's all you really need to do. But to make sure that I can see that you reposted it, I really would love for you to also use the hashtag, I believe it's Drummer Daily Podcast. That's how I will be able to find your entry. And then when I randomly select a winner, I will be able to make sure that I see your entry as one of those entries. So subscribe to this podcast and then share that post, and you'll be entered to win. And then at the end of March 2017, I'm going to give that snare drum away. This is open to US residents only this time, all 50 states, but US only. I'm going to try to find a way to do a giveaway that will be open to everyone in the world very soon. But this one has to be US only. I'm sorry if you're an international listener. I would still love for you to share the podcast and subscribe though. So I really appreciate you doing that. So anyway, this is just kind of an update episode. Join me live on Facebook every week for a live drum clinic. And then also, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast and share it with your drumming friends. That would really help me out a lot. Like I said, I try to do as much of this as I can for free. And by you helping me out a little bit with these things, it helps me keep this thing going on for free. All right, so thank you for joining me today, and tomorrow we'll be right back to drumming stuff. We won't talk about live drum clinics or anything else like that. It will be enough about me. Let's talk about you and your drumming tomorrow. All right, thanks for joining me. We'll talk again soon. Bye.